Hi students, in this video lesson we'll be learning about more uses of infinitives in English. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with reading this letter to an editor. An editor is a person who publishes a newspaper. So let me go ahead and read this right now, and then after I want you to check all of the infinitives that you see in this letter to the editor. To the editor, take away the vote? No way. I am referring to the Herald's editorial of last Sunday about taking the vote away from 18-year-olds. I am an 18-year-old, and I recently registered in order to vote in the next election. I vote to make sure my interests are represented. Maybe the survey was too confusing to consider all the issues. It's easy to make incorrect assumptions. In 1971, the 26th Amendment to the Constitution lowered the voting age from 21 to 18. We, the 18-year-olds of America, were old enough to vote then. Why are we too young to vote now? Perhaps we have not voted often enough to understand our role in politics. According to your editorial, most Americans feel we are mature enough to be in the Army, but we are not responsible enough to vote in elections. Does that make any sense? Now, take a moment in the video to identify the various infinitives that you find in this letter. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the answers. Here is an example of an infinitive: in order to vote, to make sure, too confusing to consider, it's easy to make. So notice the use of infinitives here. We'll be talking more about how we use infinitives in these forms. Old enough to vote, too young to vote, enough to understand, and mature enough to be. Now, and also not responsible enough to vote. Let's go ahead and take a look at why we use infinitives in these situations. The first use of infinitives that we'll cover in this lesson is something called infinitives of purpose. We use infinitives to give a reason or purpose for doing something. It answers the question, why? Why do you do that? Or why did you do that? Take a look at this example here. You can use the internet to find information about voting. For example, the infinitive to find here provides a purpose for using the internet. Why do you use the internet? Well, it is to find information about voting. I need to take a class in order to learn U.S. history. In order to learn U.S. history is the infinitive. It answers the question, why? Why do you need to take a class? So in order to plus a base form verb shows purpose or reason. Now, let's do some practice with this. Complete these sentences with infinitives to show purpose. Here's an example. I registered in English classes in order to learn English. So, in order to learn English explains why. Why did you register for the English classes? We could also say, I registered in English classes to learn English. In order to learn and to learn have the same meaning. All right, complete these sentences within the video with your own ideas and your own base form verbs to explain a reason for why you have a job, why you need a car, why you need to practice English, why you came to the college, or why you came to the United States. Finish these sentences with an infinitive now. All right, let's go ahead and move on to infinitives after expressions with it. We often use infinitives after expressions and it as the subject of a sentence. Here's an example. It takes time to become a citizen. So it here is the subject of the sentence, and takes time is part of the expression. To become is our infinitive. Here's another example. It is important to vote in elections. Notice the use of it as the subject. It is referring to voting. We could also say voting is important in elections. It would mean the same thing. Now, for practice, complete these sentences with infinitives. For example, it is important to get daily exercise. Notice the use of the infinitive. Remember, too, that infinitives are to plus base form verb. All right, complete these sentences now. Another use of infinitives is with the word to. We use to plus an adjective or adverb and then an infinitive to give a reason for something. I'm too young to vote. Notice the adjective here and then the infinitive. In this case, it means she's too young. She's not old enough, so she can't vote. To here with two O's has a negative meaning. What are some things that maybe you are too old to do, or too young to do, or too tired to do, maybe too scared to do, or too out of shape to do, or maybe too lazy to do? I think I am too old to go skiing these days. In what other ways are you too old to do something or too young to do something? Another way that we use infinitives is with enough. We use enough plus an adjective or adverb plus an infinitive to give a reason. I'm old enough to go into the army. Notice the use of the adjective plus enough and then the infinitive. With enough, it means that she has enough years, or her age is appropriate, so she can go into the army. Enough usually has a positive meaning. Now, what are some things that you are maybe old enough to do, or young enough to do, excited enough to do, brave enough to do, strong enough to do, or relaxed enough to do? For example, I am old enough to vote. I am over 18, so that means I have enough years or the appropriate number of years to vote. Notice that enough is used after adjectives. Now, we can also use enough plus a noun plus an infinitive. Enough can also come before a noun. So, for example, I don't have enough money to fix my car. Notice that money is the noun and enough can come before it. This sentence with the infinitive explains why you can't fix your car. Now, in this practice activity, use enough plus a noun plus infinitive to make sentences about the situations below. See the example. So, for example, on number 1, he doesn't have enough gas to drive. What other sentences can you make using enough plus a noun plus an infinitive? Let's take a look at number 1 together, and I'll give you another example, and you can come up with maybe your own example. He doesn't have enough electricity to run the heater. Now you try this on your own.